They said the empire was built on gold, and now the headlines say the stories unfold. Flashing lights, courtroom rows, silence loud, and the pressure grows. From Harlem streets to the Forbes list, now he's sitting where the storm hits. Cameras on, but who's legit? Truth and lies in the same script. Diddy defense team got 8 on the move. Agnafilo, Jarago, Shapiro, Steele, Donaldson, Westmoreland, Estavo and Driscoll. The feds got him on 5 charges. They say he on that RICO. Media says he is guilty out the gate. 8 male jurors and 4 women hold his fate. No cameras allowed in the court. Content creators screaming more, more, more. Diamonds heavy, but the weight's not cash. Every step watched through the media flash. Friends turn foes and the past don't pass. When receipts get pulled and they come in stacks. Official transcripts will show the full story. Full statements, but the details may be gold. They wanna put me on trial, put my name on file. Want me to hang it up, but that ain't my style. Say I'm back on road, no hand on Bible. We got this game in a chokehold. Yeah, I'm so cold. My whole career they tried to test me and I aced it. When you want something done, you gotta go and get it. Hate to put you on blast, but it's not up for debate. When the odds stacked against me, victims' names not being used to keep from getting approached by the accused. Kanye showing up in white, saying Diddy fight, fight. What's legacy when it's on the line? Is the name you built still gonna shine? Or does silence scream like a warning sign while the world debates guilt or crime? Every empire's got a tale untold. Every mogul's got nights cold. But behind closed doors, who holds control? Truth is a mirror and it never folds. Spotlight shadows can't outrun fate. Every crown's heavy when it's tied to the state. From the charts to the court, it's a razor blade. Walking the edge that the headlines made. Did the feds charge Diddy for his crimes, or just for some freak off good times? Baby oil galore, but the feds say there is much more. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. This will be left to the 12 on the jury committee. Is this a RICO, or just a man being major sicko? Was he really the king or just a fling? Did Diddy do what they say? Will NYC jail be where he will stay? Did he bop in the hotels on the top floors? Different bows in different area codes. Some would call them the defense saying evidence is a blur. Some witnesses concur. Will the bad boy for life be serving life, or will he get the win and be in the next jet to Berlin? Spotlight shadows can't outrun fate. Every crown's heavy when it's tied to the state. From the charts to the court, it's a razor blade. Walking the edge that the headlines made. The devil is in the details. While the world debates guilt or crime, is it RICO or freak off?
Diddy says he is love, love, love.
They said the empire was built on gold, and now the headlines say the stories unfold. Flashing lights, courtroom rows, silence loud, and the pressure grows. From Harlem streets to the Forbes list, now he's sitting where the storm hits. Cameras on, but who's legit? Truth and lies in the same script. Diddy defense team got 8 on the move. Agnafilo, Jarago, Shapiro, Steele, Donaldson, Westmoreland, Estavo and Driscoll. The feds got him on 5 charges. They say he on that RICO. Media says he is guilty out the gate. 8 male jurors and 4 women hold his fate. No cameras allowed in the court. Content creators screaming more, more, more. Diamonds heavy, but
Hey everyone, this is Infamous Sylvia. The courtroom is my arena. I bring to you the facts, the drama, and the verdicts that shapes history. No spin, no filter, just the power of truth laid out case by case. When the gavel drops, I'm here to break it down. Bold, sharp, and unapologetic. And the reason I'm saying this, y'all, because I made some people mad earlier when I brought some humor in my reading of the letters. I got so many hate comments and emails and text messages. Lighten up, folks. Lighten up. Calm down. Calm down. If you don't like it here, you know there's a lot of other channels. You know that, right? You know that. There's a lot of other channels. I'm not going to be dummying myself down to please other people. Unapologetic. I'm going to be me regardless. Okay? All right, guys? Can we agree to disagree? All right, let's talk about it. Hey everybody that's in the chat. Hello, hello. I just had to I just had to say my little speech because for some strange thing people tend to think I'm going to change what I say because they feel uncomfortable. I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. That's not my job. I'm just here to bring you information. That's it. That's it. That's it. If you feel uncomfortable, there's the door. I don't beg no one to be here. All right. Back to our regular schedule program. Exactly. Free Diddy. Period. I'm not going to sit here and act like the justice system is for us people that are brown and yellow and I'm not going to act like there's always justice for us. It's not. We're treated unfairly. We get the hardest punishment. We get treated like crap. So I'm not going to sit here and not use my common sense. You know, Diddy's not the first person that has ever done this type of alleged abuse or whatever it is, and he definitely not going to be the last. But I'm not going to sit here and make him the poster board of domestic violence because he's not the poster boy for that. He's not. And that's the thing that we so conditioned in our mind. We have that mentality of that lock 'em up mindset. We always guilty as and then other people are innocent. But we put our own people as guilty before they are innocent. And it's really, really sad that our minds are so conditioned to that and programmed. But I'm not that one. I'm not that. And I don't care what you think about me. I'm a free thinker, okay? I'm a free thinker. All right. So, we all knew the judge was going to deny the Rule 29, which is for the acquittal, and the Rule 33, which is for a new trial. We knew that before we walked out that courtroom because when the judge said, "See you Friday," that means he has already made up his mind. It was a waste of time for us to sit in that courtroom on Thursday to hear him blah, 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 blah in the ears of the others. Okay? Now, what I would like him to do is do the right thing on Friday, is to set him free for time served. But we already know that is not going to be the case. And I'm just telling you now, based on all his rulings and how biased, I thought he was in the middle, but I think he's more scared and trying to please the public and not doing the right thing, not following the law. So he tries to find things to maneuver himself out of operating as what the law says. So he goes and he sides with this government, you know, side with those what the majority wants. The one majority wants Diddy in jail. They want him to serve a heavy sentence. But if you look at the history of John, the John cases of the Mann Act, they didn't, none of them serve as much time as this the government is asking for. They're asking for 11 years, y'all. 11.25 years to be exact. That's what I was saying. A Erwin, I said 5 years. That's what I was thinking. 5 years as well, because I'm not. I don't think they're going to give him four. He's not going to give him 14 months, and hopefully, definitely not the 11 years. And the probation wanted 7. So I think he's going to go on the lower end because of the new law with the shorter sentence. So I'm thinking 5 years as well as you are. I'm thinking in 5 years as well. Just like that's what I thought about 5 years. But the great thing about this is um, because he's taken so many different programs, he can get his time cut down with the programs he's taken. So the drug program and things like that, they can cut time off from his sentencing. I think they can get up to like a year or something like that. So it could shave it down a little bit more. Because remember the with the Grizzlies, how they were shaving time off. By the time they got their sentencing, they were shaving a lot of time off because of classes that they were taking. So, and Diddy is one for that. So, I don't think he'll serve more than a year because he'll shave a lot of time off. That's what I think. The impact statement was crap. They were bull. They were not impactful to me. They were not at all. The impact statement was not. They were just repeat of what the court, the case was. Because me as one, y'all heard me read that one. That was nothing but a joke. It was a theater type of impact statement. If they asking for 11 years, that's confident why they oppose it to retrial. I don't know. It's such a shame he gets charged of Mann Act and Cassie is free. She was part of it. Yep, she was. No, it wasn't. It was part of all of them that Uda, that's your opinion. I'm giving my opinion. Everybody has their opinion, and I'm gonna stick with what I believe. So you're entitled to yours, and I'll hold on to mine. I just don't see prostitution charges. I thought prostitution is a form of payment. It is, Robin. It is. The guy was too. D Nash letter was AI. Yeah, definitely AI. This a waste of New York government money. It is. So look over here, y'all. I'm pro Diddy. Okay, I'm pro Diddy. So anybody that's coming up in here, I'm not even taking your opinion to any kind of weight over here for me. I'm pro Diddy because I don't like the way that he was treated in that. I'm not pro domestic abuse because definitely that's a no-no for me in that part. But as far as the sentencing and what he's being charged with and them going after him and constantly suing him for money, uh-uh, no. Uh, yep. I'm pro Diddy. Pro Diddy. Cause the way they gave the other guy, Epstein, and the horrible stuff he has done, and the guy from Finch and the horrible things he has done, and is on record for those people. They have police report. There was no police report on Diddy's case at all, but it was a whole bunch of police report from those the Epstein folks. They had tons and tons of police report, and they gave him a sweet deal. They gave him a sweet deal. And this is nothing but racism, and I don't care what nobody says. That guy got a sweet deal. He had 18 months and he got to work. Went to work in the daytime and he was locked up at night. And he was able to travel. Come on now. Come on. And then the Finch guy is on bond. They don't even know when his trial is gonna come. Man, y'all miss me with that mess. Miss me with that. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know what your problem is, Uda. I don't know what your problem is. I'm not dealing with the nonsense. I hear you with all this nonsense. Don't come up in here with that. For real. For real. I don't come into your chat arguing with you. So please be respectful of me. Please. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. You want to come in here and be let's not do that. Let's not. Please don't. They hate rich black men, absolutely. He is. I don't know what's up with him. Come up with all this kind of stuff. I'm not sitting here arguing with no man. That's what I don't do. I don't do that. I don't know what kind of bed you got on the wrong side of the bed, but I'm not the one. I'm not the one. I don't argue with men. So, as I was saying, we'll see what happens on Friday. We'll see. That too, right there, Pooh. That absolutely, Pooh. Exactly. Exactly. That right there. There it is, right there. That right there, Miss Pooh. I'll put your thing right there. That exactly. And then the Epstein file showed that too. Remember I had the paperwork on that and on the age. We're gonna sit here and act like the justice system is just. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll see. Okay. The justice system is just for all. But anyway, y'all, that's what we have to do. We do have to pray. We do have to pray. Mm-mm-mm. Definitely. Oh, you said and Andre arrested his sons? Andre and arrested his son. It's just for them. Yep, Robin. Cassie wanted Sean Combs' money and got it. Yeah, she did. She got it. And that's the thing I understand. You got 30 million and then you want the man's life away from his children. Andre said, I'm not a parent. Yes. They took away his children. It's sad. I take him away from his children, Mr. And I could see if it was like he locked them up and had them tied in the basement and he would deserve every bit of bad punishment. Absolutely. But you had individual who partook in the activities of these things. And not only did they partake in it, Cassie was having outside relationship with those people she was partaking with. This is the thing I don't understand. That's that that's what I don't understand. The escort talk about the relationship he had with her, a 7-year relationship. The trainer, she was sleeping with the trainer and married him. I don't get it. I really don't. Y'all help me to understand this. Please help me. Help me to understand this. Somebody please help me. And I am not saying what he did as far as the abuse is right. No, I am not saying that. I'm saying that partake she partook in the activities. She lied to her first boyfriend to be with Diddy because no one because Robin, you see how they took that video? They took a short part of that video, the worst part of the video, and played it over and over and over, and it got in the mind of the people, and all the people saw was the the uh the abuse. They didn't see the whole video. We saw the whole video at the end where they taught when they was by the elevator. She was on the phone talking and all this kind of stuff. And she went out with him that same night. She went out with him. Did I look at the new update with me about Mia? What's the new update? What's the new update, Mia? What's the new update? You and the goat. What's the new update? Government said Mia wanna talk to sentence. Oh, she says she wants to talk at the sentence, and I bet she do. I bet she do. She was an addict to him and the rug. This is crazy. Talk the same survivor and get some insight for real. So, what does it all right with Cassie is not right? So, what he does is all right with Cassie is not right. I didn't say it was right. Did I say it was right? I said the abuse part is definitely way out of whack. It's whack. But didn't she get paid for it? Did she not get paid for it? 30 mil? I don't know. Nobody in regular life who got their behind beat got 30 million. I'm talking about regular people. She was broken mentally and emotionally. She was broken before she even met him. Her self esteem was low before she even met him because she wouldn't have to lie to her boyfriend, her current boyfriend, to be with him. There was something going on with her from the beginning. Mia literally perjures herself. Why is the government using her? And Harold is a fake profile person that just want to argue. Oh, yeah. Did they submit their case that they promised to submit with the sentencing page? I guess they did. Well, I didn't read it. That man kicked her and embarrassed her, and you're so focused on Cassie sounds like something else to me. That man kicked her and embarrassed her. And so you want, for that kick, you want him to spend 20 years, 11 years in jail for the kick? That's what you want, misunderstood? That's what you want. That's not enough. She's still carrying this to this day. Her husband says she tried to run into traffic. Of course, he's going to say that. He's dangerous. If he was so dangerous, why did she still, um, I haven't seen anything happen to her. Whoever put the tape out embarrassed her. Wasn't that the guys at the hotel? Cassie and her husband benefited off the Sean Combs money. Absolutely. Yep. When they got broke, when they were living with the parents, they decided to come up with this. Of course, they were going to write letters for him in prison, too. He's P. Diddy, Joanne says. We're saying, Robin saying, hold on, let me read Robin. Robin say we aren't saying that once the video was leaked and continuously played, they couldn't get past the VD and portrayed her as a victim. She was, which she was, but was also willing participant. Yep, she definitely was. Definitely on both, a victim and a willing participant. You can be both at the same time. The monkey will. A monkey will take money. A monkey will take money. Are you being racist, Harold? Are you being racist on that? That seems like a racist remark, Mr. Harold. Sylvia respectively read the paperwork. Continue to try to intimidate witness while he was incarcerated. I don't need to read the paperwork. I was at the trial. Here's the deal. You guys have your opinion, and I have mine. It's all a money grab. It's a money grab. That's what I see it as. If he was a regular Joe Blow from the street, down the street, we wouldn't be even discussing this at all. Joe would have got his 12 months in jail, would have had his time served, and he would have been out. It wouldn't be no civil lawsuit, tons of civil lawsuit if that was a regular Joe Blow. Nope, none of it. Mm-mm. And that's a fact, y'all. It's all about money. It's all about the dollar bill. The trial of Sean Combs was a total lie. Yeah, Sean Andre, you know what they say, opinions. Yep, we all have them, right, Robin? We all have them, right? I always wonder if Cassie was scared of Puff. Why did she threaten to tell all book for money? Joe doesn't have reach of power and be real. No, there's some Joe that have power now. Don't go there. There's some Joe Blow that have power. Sure do. And they be beating the crap out of their women too. My childhood friend got 10 years in the feds as a kingpin in a RICO. Wow, 10 years for a RICO? I thought they get like 20 years. And so he's going to get as much as your friend who got a RICO. So they're asking for 11 years. And he was found not guilty of a RICO. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Kelly, for the Apple Pay. Thank you, Kenzie, for the Cash App. Appreciate you, ladies. And I know half of you guys are going by your own personal experience and things like that and your feelings. And I respect that. I respect that. I respect that you guys see things differently from what I do, right? But don't try to shoot me down because I see things different from you. Don't try to shoot me down. Exactly, Sylvia. It was the average Joe would have been out on bond and got probation fines. Yep, sure would have. The Bible speak people going to try make wrong right. And that's the way it is today in the world. I pray that you don't have a nervous breakdown. Who? Me? Me have a nervous breakdown? Why would I have a nervous breakdown? Cash was not a regular person. He was an artist, a musical artist. Cashman wasn't a regular. He had fame in the back in the days. He just became, and that was a real Rico case. From what I when from hearing what they had, that was a real Rico. She was in a relationship. Why would she walk away? This is your channel. That means your rules. Ignore the trolls. Exactly. Can't believe they asking for many years. I hope Diddy's lawyer find a way to get him out of this. Shapiro. Oh, speaking of Shapiro, hold on a second, y'all. I want to play something for y'all. Hold on. I want to play something for y'all. Hold on. Hold on a second. Oh gosh, hold on a second. Oh, I was gonna show you an interview that Shapiro did. Did y'all see the interview Shapiro just recently did? Did y'all see the interview? Hold on a second.
Hey, this is Senator John Ossoff.
Just a second. Copy this. Just a second. Hold on.
Alexander.
Hold on a second, y'all. I got something to show y'all. Oh my God, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I can't pull it up. Why can't I pull it up? Okay, hold on. It is. Okay, here we go. Here we go, y'all. Hold on. The police prosecutor is doing everything they crooked power to try to enhance the main demand level. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be thrown out in appeal. It's just the appeal process takes so long. All right, here we go, y'all. I'm going to share this with you guys. This is Shapiro's interview. All right, let me just remove this from his here for a minute. Let's just do this. All right, here we go. Here we go, y'all.
Recognized in the trial that in the jail where he is now held, that the inmates cheered for him. Can you confirm that, or do you know whether that's true or not?
Well, we weren't there, but it wouldn't surprise us at all. It was quite a moment, and I think people who saw it on TV, it was covered, down to the minute. As soon as they realized what the result meant, I think there was a celebration in many quarters.
Prosecution and the Mann Act are connected. Tell me about the Mann Act. The New York Times just
Listen to what Shapiro said
about it.
Yeah, so it's a statute that has a long and I think kind of sordid history. It was enacted in the early 20th century in connection with a sort of popular hysteria about the white slavery. There was a number of people who were politicians and others who were saying that there was a lot of white slave traffic. It was really had some really racist origins, in fact. I'm not sure there was really much to this idea that women were being forced into prostitution. It was enacted against that background, but in its early history, the term prostitution was interpreted very broadly, and there were cases that were brought basically that would no one could imagine being brought in the modern era, where prosecutors and courts would agree that basically when women cross state lines for quote unquote immoral purposes, in other words, if a woman had a boyfriend and wasn't married and they crossed state lines and stayed in a hotel, that could be a crime. And that was upheld by the Supreme Court in a series of decisions in which defendants argued, prostitution has to be brought against someone who's making commercial profit from the sex. And the Supreme Court, in some heinous decisions, rejected that. And so that's kind of the legacy. In the more modern era, the Department of Justice has generally only used the statute to go after either commercial profiteers or pimps who are taking advantage of minors or engaged in sex trafficking. And so this case is highly unusual because Mr. Combs was acquitted of those types of charges, and the case is really about his personal sex life with his girlfriends.
How did you guys get involved? You were first.
I was first. So I was initially contacted near the very beginning of the case after Mr. Combs was arrested when he didn't make bail. And I first got involved to try to help appeal the bail ruling. And that work ultimately led to my joining the team and basically leading all of the legal motions in the trial court. And that was kind of my role at the trial. I was
What's interesting to me is that you mentioned the word team. There are a lot of lawyers on both sides,
correct.
and famous lawyers.
Yes, our team was a great team. There were 8 lawyers at the trial, actually 9, it's a total of 9, from I think it was 4 or 5 different law firms. So that's pretty unusual. The prosecutors had 6 line trial lawyers, and then there were many supervisors in their office that were involved very extensively in the case.
And
So-
all the trial lawyers were women.
Correct, on the prosecution team. Our team was half men, half women. The other team was all women.
And how did you get involved?
Well, I got involved because of a particular witness who was the government's expert. You know, there are fact witnesses, and then there was an expert witness, and this was an expert who specializes in psychological abuse, particularly psychological abuse against women. And I've had a number of cases where those types of issues have come up, and I've just over my career cross-examined a lot of expert witnesses. And you know, we have good relations with all the lawyers, and I suggested that maybe this was something that I could handle.
And what point did you make in that interrogation, which got some attention by the press?
Well, the point I made, was about the nature of this type of expert testimony. This was an expert who got on the stand, was questioned initially by the government, and said that she was blind to the facts of the case, that she was not going to talk about the facts of the case, that she was just going to talk generally about the dynamics in these types of situations. And so
Excuse me.
what my goal was to kind of show that that doesn't really add any value when you haven't spoken to the witnesses, when you haven't immersed yourself in the facts. There's not much that you can tell the jury.
Talking in generalities rather than specifics.
Right, and particularly in the field of psychology, and this is what I tried to do. I emphasized that in her own practice, and this is a very qualified, able psychologist, I emphasized that in her own practice, she goes out of her way to listen carefully to her patients, to
Sure.
listen to the details when they come and present to her, to think about how they present, what their affect is, what their kind of cognitive style is, and that this is a very intense kind of one-on-one examination that psychologists typically do when they're evaluating someone in order to reach conclusions. And the government here was presenting a witness in the field of psychology who they did not ask and did not undertake.
Harold said you have
Is it
6 lawyers and still
generally
didn't make
considered
bail. Well,
in
he's also
cases that
black
involve
too.
Male-female relationships?
He's black.
And
That's the answer.
there is an accusation that a woman has been damaged and there has been physical violence against her, that it's better to have a woman and do the cross-examination?
Well, I think it depends on the context, and that can certainly be helpful. I think it depends on the approach you're going to take. Certainly the approach we took with the 2 principal women who testified was not to be, super aggressive or hostile, but rather to really elicit the other side of the story, which was confirmed by many text messages and other evidence from the time in question. And so I think it could be helpful to have a woman who can maybe put the witness more at ease when you're trying to do something like that, and it comes across perhaps a little better to the jury. But it always depends on the context. There was another woman who testified in the case who was cross-examined by another male colleague who has a more sort of aggressive style, and he did a great job, and I don't think the jury believed
He had
much of
9
that
lawyers.
witness's testimony. So
That's an interesting point, because
She just said
the
it. 9
prosecution
lawyers.
presented 34 witnesses, as I read. You presented no witnesses. I assume that's a command decision not to present a case. How did you come to that?
So I think there's always a question in every trial about, as a defense lawyer, about whether you're going to put on a case. But I think in this particular situation,
And a risk.
and a tremendous amount of risk. And in this situation, we really used the cross-examinations to bring out the other side of the facts and to put our case on.
You made your case in term by your cross-examination of their witnesses.
Exactly, exactly. And we felt really good about the way the case had come out. And we reached a decision that we liked where things were, and we didn't want to. It's always a risk when you put on a witness. You don't know what's going to happen on cross. Something could turn, and things seemed like they were in a pretty good place for us. So we decided not to put on any witnesses.
This trial was interesting and offensive to many people because there was a video of Sean Combs in a hotel hallway kicking a woman who he had a relationship with, who was on the floor. You can't ignore that. You once said to me that there is a cardinal principle of trial law, which is, you have to address the facts. How do you consider this? What's the strategy? If in fact, prosecution is going to use that, obviously, as a principal part of their case. And secondly, the public. And you assume the jury will be hugely influenced.
Yeah,
By
influence.
it because it's obscene to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you can't cross-examine a tape. You can't cross-examine a videotape. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you can interpret it and explain what's happening in it in different ways. And I think Mark Agnifilo in his summation in this case did a terrific job kind of walking through that video and giving kind of more context and an explanation.
What did he say?
Well, he walked through the different frames. He walked through what appeared to him to be happening in the tape. And I think the other thing the defense team did very well in this case was, as you said, it embraced the facts and they put them in context. And they said, look, there are men and women who from time to time fight. There are men and women who from time to time do things that they regret. But there's a long distance between that and a RICO
Hold on a
charge,
second, yeah. Hold on.
racketeering
I gotta mute
influence,
I gotta
corrupt
stop the
organization
video for a
charge,
second.
which is,
Okay, hold on.
what the basic charge was here. And
No,
the
a lot of people
idea-
fight, but they don't do what we saw in this tape.
but still, the government.
Okay. She said Mia, the government just filed that Mia is going to speak at the sentencing. Now here's the deal, y'all. He was never charged with Mia. He was never charged with Mia. Mia was not even one of the charges on his indictment. She was an overt act. Y'all know that? Did y'all know that? She was one of the overt act. Do y'all remember that when the jurors went back there to do the verdict? Mia was not on the verdict sheet at all. She was not. He didn't get charged for Mia transportation or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of weird. But she wants to speak.
Theory of the case was that certain charges.
Remember, she was the one that with
the
the
evidence fit those
the
charges,
pay.
and that he should be. They showed this videotape to support that theory, and it didn't support it at all. It didn't support it at all. It might have shown some unflattering aspects of the relationship between the two individuals, but it didn't support the legal theory that
Yeah.
the government was trying to present. at trial.
Explain what the RICO statute is, because that's what, some have made the point, even people who agreed with the prosecution, that they overcharged.
They sure
that the
did.
RICO statute should not have been used
Yep.
because the jury obviously acquitted your client.
Yeah. Well, I think that the RICO statute was really originally enacted to go after the mafia. And the idea behind it is it's for organized crime, or at least that was the original idea. And traditionally, most of the RICO cases that have been brought by the government have been that type of case against certainly other criminal organizations as well over time. And they sometimes use it for white collar frauds against organizations. But it has been interpreted over the years in a way that went a little beyond what I think its original purpose is. But this case was very extreme, because what you have here is essentially what the government was saying was that one man is a RICO enterprise. And so I think that was really pushing it. And what the case really was about was his relationship with his girlfriends, and they just couldn't support this idea that he was a racketeer, that he was, running an organization that was engaged in a crime spree. It was really ridiculous. And the jury saw that when they
Miller, I said that I think they're going to give him about 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
This case is pretty extreme. And if, I think if he had been convicted, our argument on appeal would have been that this is just not allowed by the statute. So I think this is pretty extreme, but there have been cases in the New York federal courts that prosecutors have brought in the last 5 or 10 years
R. Kelly.
To go after people in connection with sex crimes in ways that don't seem like they're really what the RICO statute was about. So it's a little bit of a trend. Hopefully the result here may deter prosecutors in the future from overusing the statute in that way.
The 34 witnesses included people who had women who had a relationship to Sean Combs. Part of the defense strategy was to say these were consensual relationships.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this case, one of many interesting things, is that these were not people he had just met. These were not women who he encountered, as strangers in a nightclub. These were his long-term romantic partners, people that he had a relationship with for years. And they had their relationship. It was carried out in a way that the couple carried it out. And the prosecution took the position that there was something inherently illegal about the way in which these long-term relationships unfolded. These were relationships that endured for years and years and years.
Did the prosecution, was there a case against him that could have been made, but the prosecution didn't make it? Could he have been charged with some aspect of domestic violence, for example?
Federal prosecutors typically don't bring, domestic violence.
They don't.
That's typically the stuff of local
State
law enforcement authorities.
Yep.
It's handled typically in different ways. I think in her opening statement, Tenny Garagos said that this falls under the rubric of domestic violence. The law has a word for these types of things that you're going to see here. It's domestic violence. But again,
so that's acknowledging that this was domestic violence.
There was domestic violence. That was acknowledged. The defense acknowledged it.
And that's against the law in many, many jurisdictions.
It can be against the law, but it's a far cry from RICO. And it's
It
a far
is
cry
far from RICO.
sex
RICO, they want
trafficking.
that money.
It's a
That's
far
what
cry
that
from
RICO
these
is
very
about, money.
fancy federal statutes. I mean, domestic violence it takes place. It's a big problem in society. It takes place all the time, but it's a far cry from these very, very fancy, elaborate federal statutes.
Why didn't they choose to charge him with domestic violence.
Well, it's really, they couldn't, because it's not a federal crime. And I also
Ah,
want to emphasize that, as unfortunate as what we saw on that tape is, that occurred almost 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yep.
And
That's statute of
they-
limitation.
What was
you know,
on the tape?
what was on the tape.
Statute of
And
limitations.
So it was
Mr.
like
Combs
2015.
has been working on this problem, which he acknowledges even while he's been in the prison. But the conduct, I mean, we're not excusing it in any way, but it's pretty dated. But there is no federal domestic violence crime. And in many jurisdictions, it's a misdemeanor. It's typically dealt with by counseling and
Yep.
other measures
That's so
short
true.
of imprisonment. So it's just not considered something that, it's just not a federal crime. It's not something federal prosecutors would consider themselves with or have the authority to charge.
I want to talk about two aspects of any jury trial, but this one especially. Opening statements. What are you trying to achieve if you're the defense lawyer in an opening statement? What's the purpose from the defense?
Well, I think there are a number of purposes, but first you want to just relate to the jury, kind of start explaining to them what your position is, what your orientation to the case is. You can't introduce a lot of facts in the opening statement because people aren't ready for it. There's not enough context. But you start to talk in general terms about what you're going to show, what you think the evidence will show, and you want to present as strongly as you can that there is a significant story to be told, a significant version of what happened here that's different from what you just heard from the prosecution. And you want to make that very clear from the outset.
I mentioned in my introduction that you are a former prosecutor. What are a prosecutor?
Mars, you got to remember, it's the color of the
from an opening
skin.
statement?
So
It's the color of the
I
skin.
think they're trying to demonize the
Color.
defendant. And,
Well, so is that what you did? Try to demonize the defendant?
there's a lot of drama around it, but if you have a strong case, you feel like you have a story to tell about something the defendant did that's very bad, and you try to paint a picture, as accurately as you can about that. And that there's a typical style, particularly in that office, that they follow to do that.
This is the Southern District of New
the
York.
Southern District of New York. But it's different. And a lot of defense lawyers think, don't do what I think Jonathan was talking about, which I think is very important, which is to present some kind of counter narrative. I think a lot of defense lawyers think that their job is just to poke holes in the prosecution and talk about reasonable doubt. And of course, everyone knows that the government has to prove their case by a reasonable doubt, but jurors are normal people, and you have to from the get-go let them know there's another side to the story.
Yeah.
You can't just deny it because otherwise they're going to tune you out.
So also what you can do in an opening statement is create the narrative that you want the jury
Correct.
to
Exactly.
buy.
Absolutely.
What was the prosecution's narrative in this case?
Well, the prosecution's narrative was that this was a bad guy who repeatedly did bad things, and that he did it as the leader of an organization, a racketeering organization, namely the people he worked with, who they claimed, were in on his bad acts, and that was basically their narrative.
And the defense narrative was?
Well, so the other piece of their narrative, which was heavily emphasized, was this argument that these two girlfriends didn't want to engage in the sexual activity that the couple often did in these threesomes. And that was their big point, was to try to say that was coerced or the product of fraud or something like that. And our narrative was we conceded the domestic violence because it was true, but we separated.
And there was video
out.
evidence.
And we said, you know, that's not the charge here. And what he's charged with is engaging in racketeering. And we showed that that wasn't true. And that he's charged with coercing these women. And we showed through both their testimony and all these text messages, and there was video evidence that the jury could watch, that in fact, you know, that they were engaging in this behavior voluntarily as part of the relationship, even if they regretted it later.
And you had lots of, I assume from reading about the case, there was lots of text messages which seemed to establish that fact.
Correct. Yeah, and we
Lots
had
of
to
text
put
messages.
this into evidence because typically the prosecution seemed to only want to put in, you know, the half of the conversation and strip it from the context that we believed established that this was all voluntary on the part of the girlfriends.
In all of your experience as a trial lawyer, is evidence from emails and text good evidence?
Yes, because it's there.
It's contemporary.
It's contemporary. It's locked in. You can't say this email wasn't sent. You can't say this text message
You
wasn't
just say,
sent.
I didn't mean it. Or...
Right. And often, you know, we find ourselves on the defense side having to explain away texts or having to explain away emails or put them in a larger context and show where they fit in. But here, the shoe was really on the other foot. I mean, the defense was saying to the prosecution, you've overlooked this. They're showing the jury, look at what was actually said at the end of this text message. Look at this text, which you didn't show when you put this witness on. And there was a whole set of facts and emails and texts that the defense brought out in order to show the full picture of what happened in these relationships.
How crucial do you think that was to the jury's decision on the two acquittals that they made?
Well, you know, you can only assume that the whole combination, all of the evidence in the case, how the witnesses performed on the witness stand, how they answered questions, what the text evidence looked like, you know, a lot of texts in real time happening at this, all of this is very, very significant. And I think this was a case in which, you know, witness after witness, text messages after text messages, the truth kept coming out.
Yep, the
after
truth
the
kept
government
coming
had
out.
finished examining the witness. The defense would get up, ask the witness more questions, show some text, and more truth would come out. And I
Yep.
think the cumulative result of all that, you know, you can see the verdict. It had quite an effect on the jury.
I want to come to what a closing statement establishes.
Yeah.
But first the jury selection. What was your theory of jury selection?
It's a good question. I think we were looking for people who would have an open mind, especially because this case, there was a tremendous amount of bad publicity that started even before he was charged, after the lawsuit by Ms. Ventura was filed, and then, you know, all these copycat lawsuits, and there was a tremendous amount of totally false information floating around in the internet. So
Yes.
one of the most important things was we were never going to find a jury that hadn't heard something about the case and heard some of the negative
Let me interrupt you.
publicity.
Do you assume that juries, no matter what the judge's instructions are, will in fact go online?
Yep.
You know, I think it's inevitable that
And there's been a lot written about that.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting topic.
it is a
Yeah.
very
I think
interesting
most
question.
people assume that.
I think,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think you assume that it may happen, and I think we also assume that even before this trial started, that it must be the case that the vast majority of the potential jurors knew things about the case from what they had read or seen online. And so a lot of what we were trying to do was ferret out people who were both being honest about that and really could put it out of their mind. I think we were looking for a diverse jury, and we got one.
got a
It's
diverse
actually very
jury.
difficult to get one in the Southern District of New York, where the case was tried. There has been a lot written and documented with data showing that the jury pool is not representative of actually the people living in the district who are eligible for jury service, and there are far more white people in the pool, and Black Americans and Hispanics are underrepresented compared to their
Percentage
percentage of the population.
Right.
And so that's a big challenge in a case like this, where there's a celebrated, iconic, famous Black man being accused of sex crimes. But we were fortunate that we did get quite a diverse jury. I think
It
that was
did.
helpful to have
It did.
different perspectives in the jury room.
And you establish the nature of a juror by simply cross-examination during.
Yeah, during the voir dire process, where in federal court typically, and this is what occurred here, the judge asks questions, the lawyer can't ask questions. I think in state court, the lawyers can learn quite a bit more, and Jonathan can talk about that. He's actually done that in state court. I haven't, but yeah, there was a questionnaire, and then I think 2 or 3 days it took to select the jury.
Yeah, in state court, the lawyer interacts with the jurors before the opening statements. You address them directly. You can ask them questions about themselves. You can ask them what they thought about another juror's comments. You can really have a nice kind of interaction and hear them talk. And you can go ask questions of every juror, and you can make choices based on that conversation that you've just had with the jurors. That doesn't happen in federal court. Federal court, the judge leads the process. The judge asks some pretty limited questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not the same kind of initiation into the trial. It doesn't begin the same way. Really, federal trial really begins with opening statements rather than with the questioning of the jury.
And what else does a federal judge do that might not happen in a state trial?
I think they both do pretty similar things. They control, what evidence comes into the trial and what does not. I think there were a lot of legal rulings and a lot of briefing. In this case, almost on a daily basis, there were briefs and legal issues, and you rarely see that in state court trials. It does happen from time to time, but I think this was one in which, because there were these questions of federal law, like RICO, and there were a lot of evidentiary questions in this case. You had lots of lawyers on both sides. And of course, you had Alexandra raising all of these legal issues. This was a federal judge who was very, 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 busy, looking at the law and looking at the evidence and trying to make judgments on a day-to-day basis.
Can you generalize about the kinds of appeals that you make all the way to the Supreme Court? Are most questions having to do with evidence?
The one I've been fortunate, sometimes some of the cases I've had have to do with evidence, and some really important piece of inflammatory evidence that came in that shouldn't have, or the defense had an important piece of evidence and a judge kept it out so the jury couldn't hear all the important facts. But I would say that more often it's easier to win an appeal, and it's difficult to win criminal appeals if you can find a legal issue having to do with whether the conduct that the government proved is actually a crime. And I actually, just as an example, this comes up a lot in fraud cases where sometimes the government prosecutes business people or Wall Street people for something that they really realize should be regulated, but it hasn't been, and they try to call it a crime. And so I've been fortunate to have a number of cases where those kinds of issues popped up, and we got the court to throw out the conviction and say, look, this wasn't a crime. You can't regulate by prosecution. Those types of issues, or issues about the legality of the jury instructions, can often be the best ones to raise on appeal.
This will be embarrassing to Alexandra, but why does she keep getting calls from people, very famous defendants, who say, "Get me Alexandra Shapiro"?
Because she's good at what she does, and she has a great track record of success.
Yeah,
A proven track record at this point. It's I heard someone say the other day that some lawyers go through their entire careers with very good appellate lawyers with either no or maybe one victory in the Second Circuit, or 2 victories, but she's had multiple good results.
She's the bomb.
What's the appeal of the appellate? I'm going to make the case here that being a trial lawyer is fantastic. Jonathan is going to confirm that for me. And I'm going to look, as I did when I recounted the history of Abraham Lincoln and other people like Clarence Darrow. But you left that, and you know your reputation today is as good an appellate lawyer as there exists.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I enjoy about it
Is it the intellectual stuff?
it's partly the intellectual, the intellectual aspect of it, but I typically get called in after someone has lost. And so in some ways the stakes are very high, but in some ways, if I win, I've really helped them out, and it's really challenging.
Yeah.
It's in many ways, I think being a defense lawyer in general is way more challenging than being a prosecutor. But being an appellate lawyer for people who've lost a criminal trial is extremely challenging. And so it's extremely satisfying if you can help someone with a problem like that. So that's part of it. And the other part is the intellectual. And I enjoy writing.
Writing the
briefs and kind of
that may make its way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly.
You agree with her that being a defense attorney is much more exciting than being a prosecutor?
Well,
You've never been a prosecutor.
I've never been a prosecutor, but I think there's no better feeling in the world when you have a client that you believe in, they've been accused, and you're able
Unfairly accused, you would say.
Yes, and you're able to vindicate them to the world.
So let me answer this. Do you ask your client, are they guilty, or do you not?
That varies from lawyer to lawyer, but I like to know everything. I like to know all the facts. I like to know, what to expect and what not to expect. So I typically engage in very, broad, open conversations with clients. And I don't know that I ever pose the question in those terms, are you guilty or are you innocent? But certainly you want to know what happened. You want to know what happened.
And if they tell you what happened, then they will therefore be describing guilt or innocence.
Yes and no, I mean, it depends on what
they could have done it, but
is.
not having the requisite intent or motive,
Right.
or something like that.
Right, and often it's in a gray area. When a case goes to trial, usually take a case to trial when you believe you have a strong substantive defense that you can present and succeed in. Trials are always tough, especially criminal trials, and defense victories are rare. But you take cases to trial that you think you have a shot after having done a lot of work. So.
When you went to law school, did you intend to be a trial lawyer, or did that come after you went to law school?
Well, we could talk for a long time about why I went to law school. I'm still not sure I could tell you the answer, but I didn't know of any other kind of lawyer. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. All I knew were the kind of lawyers on television.
The ones I mentioned,
and they were
the Perry Masons of the world.
Yeah, they were the trial lawyers.
Yeah.
So I always had that image in mind, and wound up lucky enough to get to do it.
Yeah, and you?
Yeah, I did have lawyers in the family, and I think, ironically, when I started law school, I thought I was going to become an international corporate lawyer because that's what my father did. Yeah. But I actually
you must have disappointed your father.
But yeah, I think he was perfectly happy with what happened. But yeah, once I got to law school and I started to learn what it was really all about, I knew I wanted to be a litigator of some type.
And what's that about? What is the attraction of being a litigator?
Well, I think part of it is this kind of sport of like the trial, which is exciting. But part of it is also, we do a lot of criminal law, but we do a lot of other kinds of things as well. And I think that if you're an intellectually curious person and you don't specialize in one narrow area, being a litigator, even a criminal litigator, if you do lots of different types of criminal work, it exposes you to all different types of people. You learn about a lot of different industries and the foibles of the human condition. And it's just, every case is different, and you learn so many new things, even just factually, really. You learn the law, but what's really interesting is the facts of each case.
When you are hiring a young lawyer to come to your firm, the firm that you started, first name is Shapiro. When you did that, um, when you're hiring a new lawyer, what do you look for?
We want them to be people who want to be like us. You know, they don't want to just sit there and do what we tell them to do.
Yeah.
They want to come up with their own ideas. They want to advocate for the client, take on lots of responsibility, run the cases. I mean, that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, we're looking for people with a spark.
Yeah.
And
With a
who have
spark.
a real personality and a real go-get. We
And
happen
a
to have,
sense of humor.
we happen to be lucky. We have phenomenal colleagues and really great people, young lawyers that we work with. We're very, very lucky in that regard. But these are people who are very motivated, who are they've decided not to go to one of the big firms that has hundreds of lawyers in the city. They're looking for something interesting.
This is because you have a small
We have a boutique.
boutique firm.
Yeah, and we are just we enjoy watching them get the experience. We enjoy watching them succeed, but we're looking for people with a spark, with humanity, people who can relate to clients, people who have ideas,
Yeah, and we have, there was a young lawyer that worked with me every day in the Combs trial. He was in
There
court
you
every
go.
day.
There you go.
He
Drexel.
argued a number of the important evidentiary questions. His name is Jason Driscoll. He's fantastic. And he's very young, but the judge had a tremendous amount of respect for him. All the other lawyers did. And we liked people who are willing to, who want to do that and are capable of, kind of taking that on. And,
let me put it this way. He came to us from one of the biggest, most prominent firms in the city. He had never been involved in a trial. He came to our firm.
Had never been involved in because he was at a big firm and didn't have the opportunity.
Big firm. He came to our firm. I had a trial about the lyrics to the song Hotel California, criminal trial. Don Henley testified. He was involved in that.
Great Don Henley.
Yes. Then we had an insider trading trial involving Trump Technology Group in the Southern District of New York. He was involved in that trial.
Right.
Then he was involved in the Sean Combs trial.
So he got a kind of experience he would not have gotten in a big firm.
In 18 months, he had 3 of the most high-profile cases in the country. So
Wow.
All right. Is there magic about it? I mean, I mentioned the notion that trial lawyers are like cowboys.
Interesting, yo.
They're a part of the American mythology.
yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And I think that it's great when you have these kind of Perry Mason moments, if you will. And we did, for instance, have some in the trial. But I think what people don't
What's
realize,
a Perry Mason moment? Just for the audience.
sort of like an amazing, something amazing happens in the cross-examination and the witness falls apart, or something like that. And
it rarely happens.
It rarely happens in real life. It happens a lot in the movies. But I think what people don't realize is that actually one of the most important parts.
Yeah, I was talking about that the other day, Anthony.
The preparation, which is very tedious, and just mastering the facts, and
That
then of
they
course
cutting the
the
sentencing
technique of
down.
how
Yep, I
you
talked
show
about
that someone's
that.
lying about something or elicit.
I wonder if
So
they're going to
what's the
go back
technique?
and redo
He's probably better
Diddy's
able to
sentencing
answer
then.
that.
Well, let me
if
just
he
say,
gets too much.
trials are changing. And, you think of in the
How
past.
are they changing and why?
Well, in the past, remember Jerry Spence, the great trial lawyer who would wear his buckskin
I
jacket.
interviewed him.
Kind of this kind of, I'm the lone defender, I'm the figure from the Western. And that represents a certain kind of ethos and era. And what's happening to trials is what's happening to a lot of things. Technology is creeping into the process. There's a lot of, screens in the courtroom now. In your opening statement, you're often expected to put, visual images up.
And also people use text as a means of communicating. And so therefore you have access to a communication that you didn't have in the past.
You could have a small case, say a drug bust on the street, and you will then be given a tranche of 4,000 texts and documents and emails that the government has pulled off of various databases and data sources. And you've got to sort through all this digital evidence in every single case that you have, no matter how small. And that has just transformed what lawyers do to what lawyers look at before a trial, what you have to do to be ready if a witness takes the stand, how you present it. It really, as the culture changes, trials have changed over time.
It's also transformed law enforcement as well,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
I mean, the first thing they do is
They
look for
take all
some
the
data trial,
devices.
some data trail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Closing statements. What do you hope to achieve? Because it's the last thing
Yeah.
that the jury is going to hear.
Yeah, I mean, those are really important. And what you're really trying to do is tie everything together. So the opening statement should be a preview of what you think the jury's going to hear and what your narrative is going to be. And the closing, is going to deal with the evidence they've actually heard and try to tie it together so you can explain to them, why they should believe this piece of evidence, but not that witness's testimony, and why, when you take it all together, it shows, if you're the defense lawyer, that the person's not guilty of the particular charges. And if you're the prosecutor, why they are. So it's really when it's an opportunity to tie all the evidence together in the story that you're trying to tell to the jury and show them that what they actually heard supports your view of
Which
this.
makes it, I would assume, this is a question, so important to have a narrative that you present in your opening statement, because your closing statement is to remind how the whole thing fits together.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think the opening statement is in some ways the most important speech that you give before the jury. It really sets the stage. It's the first time they've heard anything. And I think when you have a long trial that, jurors are supposed
Was
to.
this a long trial, Jim?
This was a long trial.
43 days or?
Jurors are supposed to keep an open mind. They're instructed by the judge to keep an open mind, but it's natural for people to form opinions and to have kind of reached tentative conclusions in their mind before they hear the closing argument. And the idea that these jurors or people are sitting there without a disposition, without any thoughts about which way they want to go before they hear that closing statement, I just don't think it works that way. So I think of the closing statement is where you are presenting the arguments to those jurors who sympathize with your position. They're already kind of there, and you're giving them the ammunition that they're going to take back with them into the jury room. So, those of you who are with us on this, those of you who have seen the witnesses and are tending our way, here are the points for you to think about when you're deliberating with your fellow jurors. And that's what you're doing in the closing statement.
You're giving them ammunition.
You're giving them
to
the
reinforce
ammunition.
their point of view.
Those who have, they kind of form opinions, not just by listening to arguments, but by emotionally reacting to the witnesses, by forming a sense, from what they've seen.
Mhm.
And they have that sense and they have these instincts, and you're giving them arguments to kind of help them get to the final stage.
There is also this, if you have a controversial defendant, your client is controversial, clearly true in Sean Combs. Do you, throughout the trial, want to make him more, in this case, less of something and more of something?
Oh, absolutely.
And how do you do that, and what do you do?
And
what did you do?
what we did here, the government called a number of his former employees and others who had known him over the years.
To say what?
They called him for certain purposes, like to try to prove their RICO case. And we were able to bring out in cross a lot of other sides of him and, how he ran his companies. When you think of RICO, one of the things you think about is, a corrupt enterprise, and his companies were
Like mafia
discussed.
stuff.
Exactly. And we brought out, that the companies were run extremely professionally. There was a witness who had been the CFO at one point, who was a Harvard and a Wharton School educated person, and he was able to explain in the cross. We were able to bring out, how the companies were run, everything, and all the amazing things he had done in his career, and the way he built his companies and hired a diverse group of people, and was always looking for people who were excellent, and things like that. We were able to bring out, and yeah, I mean, so that was very important to try to show another side of the client to the jurors.
Well, it is said that he wore sweaters and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. He was.
Was that him or was that, which raises another question. How involved was he, Sean Combs, in his defense?
He was very involved. He's a very active client. We met with him. He was involved in
Well, so what
all
would
the
he do?
decisions. Well, I can't, we would discuss all the issues as they came up. This witness is coming, here's our plan for the cross. He would tell us facts, give us ideas, that's typically with an intelligent client they're going to be very actively involved because they know the facts, they know things,
And they know
he's
what's at stake.
they know what's at stake, and you have to do that as part of your strategizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if you don't like the client? What if the client, would you accept the case?
Well, if it depends on the case, but I've had clients. I was a federal public defender for a while,
Right.
and which was a phenomenal job. And I
You'd recommend it for people who coming out of law school?
Absolutely. And I had a variety of clients, some who adored me and some who just thought all lawyers were terrible. I had one client
and some who thought they deserved more than a public defender.
Right. I had one client that I won a trial for and then filed
He
a
said, I'm about to get a
constitutional motion.
copyright strike for
And,
what?
he told the judge that
Why
he
would I
wanted
get a
new lawyer.
copyright strike?
And the judge looked at him skeptically and said,
Why would I
"Why
get
on
a
earth?" He said,
copyright
"I don't know what it is about this guy, Judge. I just want a new lawyer."
Tiffany, you don't know the
So,
rules, how do you?
the lawyer-client relationship, you want to get
You
along
don't know
with
the
your
rules of
clients. It's
YouTube, do
important
you?
that the client have a lawyer that the client is comfortable with. That's what I always tell the client. You have to be comfortable with your lawyer. You have to trust your lawyer. You have to be willing to share with your lawyer. You have to be willing to push back when your lawyer's doing things that you don't think are necessarily the right thing to do.
Or not
And
doing
that's,
enough.
yeah, it's a relation. It really is a very kind of profound human relationship, lawyer and
Hey,
client,
Regina.
particularly when the stakes are high, and the person's ability to facing prison. It's a very profound relationship.
Can you imagine having are there some people that you would simply not defend because you're offended by, or do you worship at some notion that every person deserves the best attorney?
I think every person deserves the best attorney that is willing to defend them, and that someone should defend everyone.
Yep, I agree with
We
her.
have
But
the
there's a limit to what
luxury
you would
that
do.
I agree.
sometimes we turn down cases.
Because
I mean, I would say more often than not, when I've turned something down, it's because I thought the person would be very difficult to deal with. I wouldn't say that because of what they're accused of, we wouldn't defend them. That's not really the issue. Is this person, just, it's going to be too much of a pain. I'm not going to we're not going to have a good client attorney relationship, and somebody else is better suited to dealing with this person and their issues.
That's interesting.
But it's not because I wouldn't turn something down because of what somebody is accused of.
what's a good client?
One that
A good
listens.
client is one who is transparent, who gets along well with you, who talks to you, and who gets
Yep,
the situation.
it sure can, Ray. It sure can. They
who
can get a
understands
change.
that this is what's
If
happening.
during the time
appreciates
being
it,
there, they
puts it
can
in
get a
perspective, and
change.
can work with a lawyer.
And understands that that
Especially with
for him or her,
the changes
to
coming
give their
so
best
quickly.
is the way that they ensure
That's why the
best
judge
results.
should
Yes,
take that into
we
consideration
say
as
that
well.
to our clients at the outset. We tell them that we need them. We're going to be working very hard. We want them to kind of live and breathe this case with us. We want them, we put in our engagement letter, we expect you to share information with us. We really want a very strong lawyer-client relationship with a free flow of information back and forth.
Okay, this is like,
It brought out the best in me as an analytical lawyer and a legal writer. And she really cared about her clerks. She was a very kind person.
let's see what
Where do you put the
I think
Sean
it's
Combs
okay. Here it is.
experience in terms of your own
You mean working on the case,
Yeah.
or well, it's interesting. After I think it was the day of the verdict, I said to Jonathan, or maybe it was before that. This is the most interesting case I've
That's
ever worked
exactly
on.
what I'm asking.
Yes. And it's because the facts were fascinating, but it also had all these amazing, interesting legal issues, but also because the client is fascinating, and he's a very charismatic and inspiring person. And it's very hard to describe unless you've met him and talked to him, but he really has a magnetism that is
He
really
does.
unusual. And I've represented
He
other,
does. That is the truth
famous
about him.
CEOs and billionaires, and they're all
You are
interesting.
representing someone like that.
Interesting in their own way, but I would say Sean is probably the most fascinating client I've
He
had.
is, definitely.
Because he's charismatic, because he's
And-
engaged, because he's
He's
Yeah,
inspiring.
I think what he's done in his life is incredible.
and all the stuff that you hear about how he related to women.
If we put aside his issues in dealing with his romantic partners, and you look
Well,
at,
that's a big thing.
it is a big thing, but I want to say one other thing is, if you look at his business dealings, he had a lot of powerful women and continues to have a lot of powerful women helping him run his businesses. And he has daughters that he's very proud of, and he's as good a father as he can be to, and that he hopes to go home to soon. So I'll say those things. I think he has struggled with these issues in his relationships, and he's working on it. He's been working on it even while he's been in the prison, and I think he's going to continue to work on it. It's very unfortunate, but he's a complicated human being, like many human beings. So
That's true. Thank you,
Thank you for
Shapiro.
coming.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Shapiro.
having us.
For having
That
us.
was
Really
excellent. Excellent interview, y'all. That was excellent interview. That was a great, great, great interview. What do y'all think? Great interview. Great interview. Oh well, guys, we got to get up at 4 a.m. My morning, folks. I got my alarm set. We got to get up in the morning. So you guys, I will see those that are going to be up with me at 4, so we can do our challenge for the next 30 days. Well, we got 28 days left now of having, going before God and just in worship and just listening to prayer and things like that. All right. I'll see you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Anthony, for giving me your input. Anthony, thank you. Your experience. I appreciate you. And everybody else, thank you so much for your input. Even the ones that disagree with me, thank you so much. It is great for us to engage and have our own differences and respect each other's differences. And nobody's wrong because everybody's dealing from their own personal experience. So I thank you guys for your time. Sean Combs needs to be with from behind bars. Man, that is outdated. Yeah, he definitely needs to be. Thank you, Andre. Thank you for your input as well. Thank you, Regina. Thank you. There was somebody else. Where's Tiffany? Thank you, Tiffany. Even Tiffany, me and you in different part of the spectrum of agreement, but thank you for your input. Thank you, Ray J. Thank you. Who else? Thank you, everybody. Just everybody that's in here. I have to go to bed now because I have to get up at 4 a.m. I might as well set my my live for tomorrow. Yes, free Sean Combs. Free Diddy. Free Diddy. I know they get so mad with me, y'all. They get so mad. But it's okay. It's all right. I'll see y'all later. Good night, everybody. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one from another. Amen. Bye.
Thank you for watching the information. panel. Together we build this digital spree. We appreciate you and our growing family. With mods by our side and chat flowing free in this online space. It's just you and me, we laugh until tears roll down like the rain. In this virtual world, you ease all my pains. We're family, not just a show. Every click and comment makes us grow. Mods and chat, keeping the vibe so right. Together we shine like stars in the night. We cherish the moments, the highs and lows, from the latest gossip to stories untold. You're more than a viewer, you're part of the crew in this space of ours. It's all because of you. This digital world where emotion is shared, every post and reaction showing we care. The love is real in this virtual domain. With every sign, enjoys what we'll gain. We're a family, not just a show. Every click and comment makes us grow. Mods and chat, keeping the vibe so right. Together we shine like stars in the night. We're a family, not just a show. Every click and comment makes us grow. Mods and chat, keeping the vibe so right. Together we shine like stars in the night. This digital world where emotion is shared, every post and reaction showing we care. The love is real in this virtual domain. With every sign, enjoys what we'll gain. We're a family, not just a show. Every click and comment makes us grow. Mods and chat, keeping the vibe